$250,000 that you make, you're going to get the tax break. And that includes 97% of small business owners who make under $250,000. So here, small business was offered this, 97% was offered this tax break. Your congressman, Duncan Hunter, voted no to a tax relief for 97% of small business and 98% of the people in this district. He said, no, you're not going to get a break unless, because I pledged to Grover Norquist, unless we give the same tax break to the top 2%, who are already the top 2%. They're very wealthy. Now, had I been in Congress and somebody offered me, as they say, somebody offered me a glass that was 97% full, 98% full, I take that deal. I take that deal in a heartbeat, and we'll worry about we can address the 2% another time. But I'm not going to have 98% of my constituents take a beating simply because 2% aren't getting a break as well. It's just not the way to do business. And we're right in the fact that small business is the key, but the best thing we can do for small business is to put people to work. And that gets to infrastructure as well. How many, you can imagine how many in this county, how many construction workers, how many contractors, how many suppliers are just sitting, waiting to go to work on infrastructure here in this county. And if all we have to do is take the money that's been wasted on incredibly expensive Pentagon issues and invest that in infrastructure, and we put all these people back to work, the construction workers, contractors, suppliers, and everybody that's related to them. See, they go to work, they bring home a paycheck, they go to small businesses, other small businesses. That's how the economy is going to get going. We have to put people to work, and we have to. The payoff too is that your infrastructure is, you have something when you're done. When we throw away over half our discretionary budget on the Pentagon, that's money lost. You're preparing for something that may happen and blah blah blah. But we do spend more than almost as much as the rest of the world combined on military. And there's a very important statistic when it comes to military spending, and that is called the it's a effect. In other words, here you put $1 billion, taxpayer $1 billion, you spend it on defense, and that is the multiplier effect. Spend $1 billion on a defense project, and it creates 8,000 jobs. That's the way it basically boils down to. You spend the same $1 billion on infrastructure, 25,000 jobs. That's why it's so important to get back to rebuilding the country, because more weapons don't make you safe. The way things are going now, and the country is crumbling, that is what's really, and education is suffering, healthcare is suffering, all these things, that's weakening our country. Dwight Eisenhower said, every dollar that's uselessly spent on military mechanisms makes our country weaker, not stronger. That's why everybody knows that the wars we're going to be fighting, the real wars, are going to be economic. They're not going to be military. And they're not going to be won or lost on some foreign battlefield. They're going to be won or lost in America's classrooms. Because while we throw all this money at the Pentagon, other countries around the world are putting their money into their schools, their universities. They're putting it into research and development, of products that are going to be useful. And they're running away from us. Education, even Condoleezza Rice said it. Education is K-12 education is a national security issue. And it doesn't pay off in 6 months like a lot of corporations like it to do. It pays off down the line. But it is not a cost for taxpayers. It's an investment. And the better our education is, the better off it will pay. And we can do that too. We can do that too if the people make it the priority it needs to be.
Term limits, I've heard that thrown around. What do you think?
Well, technically, I think the Constitution doesn't allow it, but I would be very much in favor. I'd be very much in favor. There is nobody. There has to be a point in time where an individual is no longer how should I put it? They're no longer useful, and not only that, it's worse than that, because when you have now, here we have the Hunter dynasty, which has gone on for 32 years. For 32 years, a hunter has been the representative in this district. And you look at Dianne Feinstein as our senator. When people stay too long, and I'm not talking 4 years or 6 years, but when you get into these numbers, into the 20s and the 30s, when you get into those kind of numbers, these people are so far away from the constituency, and so people are just so used to going and clicking that name every 2 or 4 years, whatever it might be, and you can look at what happens to them. They're more than likely not only to be further from the people than they were when they started, but they're closer to the big money. Because the longer they've been around, then that's when the PACs and all that go right to these people that have been around a long time. They're heads of committees and whatnot, and they just throw money at them. They just throw it at them. So they can't help. People are naturally, it's natural to take advantage, I guess. And these people do, and I'm not picking on her personally, but when it comes down to like SOPA, where the internet companies and whatnot, cable companies were trying to take over access to the internet. Now, you have people like a Dianne Feinstein or a Barbara Boxer or a what's his name in Minnesota, Al Franken. You would think, these people care about civil liberties. They care about rights. They want the mass of people to have open access to the internet. No. Because Dianne Feinstein, she got over $1 million from these companies, the cable companies and Hollywood people who wanted to have control over access to the internet because they can make a lot more money. See? So they give her $1 million plus. They give Barbara Boxer close to $1 million. Al Franken in Minnesota, $750,000. And all three of them voted yes. They took the money, right? Not only that, Dianne Feinstein was the sponsor, one of the sponsors of the bill. So the corruption, what money does in Washington, I don't care. I don't care if you're a congressman or your president or your senator. I don't care if they do 80% of what you'd like and they put that in the paper. There are some very critical votes that mean a very lot to real people. And if the money is right, they'll vote against you. And that's just the way it is. That's why it's important that after 16 or 20 years, they got to go, because you can look at their records. You can look at their records. Once business realizes these people have so much power as committee chairman, and they will decide what bills get brought up. Okay, these people have so much power, and the money just is like a magnet, and nobody deserves that kind of power, because it holds everything back that could really mean something for a mass of people, and because the PACs and whatever with these huge amounts of special interest money get in there and take control of a congressman or a senator, whatever it might be, then the people no longer matter. And that's why it's important to say, okay, even if it's a party person, there are other people in your party who will be glad to carry on the mantle. But you personally, you got your millions. It's time for you to move on. And it's like the trees in the forest. You know, these big old ones. Sometimes they got to fall over so that the others get some sunlight.
I have one question. Recently, they were talking about the sequestration that they say may happen in the end of the year if they can't come up with any kind of way to balance the budget. And immediately the discussion turned to 25% of the jobs in the San Diego area come from defense spending. So if this happens, all these jobs will be impacted. Nowhere in the discussion was, do we really need to be spending that money in the first place? It's all about employing people possibly, and in my view, on a lot of things that we don't really need. So how do we change that conversation to something that really will affect our whole economy?
Well, this fiscal cliff, well, sequestration is part of it, but the fiscal cliff that they're talking about January 1st would also include the Bush tax cuts going away, sequestration. In fact, there is, I think, about $7 trillion. $7 trillion that's going to be have to be dealt with in January. But sequestration first. The cuts that the defense budget would face, what they would actually do, instead of, I saw this too, 25% of, I think 25% of, or there were 25 companies in Santee that would be affected if the sequestration goes on. But let's just say the whole county, say it was 25%. The sequestration for the defense budget is not does not happen in at one time. It's going to be over a period of 10 years, and even when it's fully implemented, all it would do is return our defense budget to what it was in 2007. This gets back to that same way that they use fear to move voters. See, once they get you stampeded, they don't have to do anything else. And the way to do that is XL pipeline, another classic example. Oh, we're running out of oil. If we get the pipeline in, then America is safe. It's exactly the wrong thing. It's exactly opposite that, what they tell you. And it's the same thing here with the sequestration for the defense budget. The Pentagon, they want to audit the Fed, which is understandable. They want to audit the Pentagon. The Pentagon told the Congress, you can't audit us, we're too big. They don't even know where their money is, where it's going, to whom. So, of the 10 richest suburbs in the United States, 7 around Washington, D.C., and the Maryland, Virginia suburbs around Washington, D.C. 7 of the 10 richest counties. And because this defense money is so huge, they have leased, defense contractors and Pentagon people, companies, they have leased enough office space in the surrounding area in Virginia, Maryland, and suburbs to make 2 additional Pentagons. And Pentagon is the biggest building in the world. nobody has any idea how much money, how much duplication of effort was going to this contractor and that contractor. They're going to be doing the same thing. Nobody knows because we just keep throwing money at it. Well, as if you put any money in education, oh, you're throwing it all away, you know. But what they're doing at the Pentagon is criminal, because they are giving you the illusion that this is somehow making the country safer, when in fact it is weakening the country, throwing all this money out there, because there is no production coming out of it. You could fund Medicaid if they would just not build, if they would build one less F-35 fighter, the Joint Strike Task Force fighter. You know, they got planned to make 1 million or 1,000 plus of them, and they're going to be obsolete in 10 years anyway with modern technology and whatnot. But if we would just take many of these Pentagon projects and shift that money to things that need to be done, the country would be a lot better off. And a tremendous amount of waste in that, in what they do. But again, if you say anything about defense budget, you're not a patriot. And the Pentagon has been smart. The reason you talk about San Diego County, of course, it is a military place here, and defense industry place here. The Pentagon has, the defense industry, they have companies in every single congressional district in the United States. So that the moment anybody talks about cutting back in defense, they throw this stuff out, 25% of blah, 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 like they're all going to get fired or something. They throw this out so that the congressperson that lives there say, oh my God, I can't tell them it's okay with me to cut back on the budget because I'll get voted out. But we have to find our priorities. We have to find priorities. And military spending can't be one of them. Take example, we have 11 carrier groups. I say, oh, we need one more. Well, remember this. We've got two carrier groups, I think, in the Gulf area right now. But even as short as 10 years ago, that carrier group in a 24-hour period can put out more destruction, 8 times the destruction of that same group 10 years ago. So you don't need to actually put more ships out there, because the increase in technology and sophistication can maximize the firepower of any of these things without actually putting another one in place. What do you think?
Glass-Steagall.
Oh, this is a good one. Ending too big to fail banks. One thing, you only need to do one thing. All you need to do is to reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act. That's the act that, as we look at, like we're in the late 20s now, that when in the early 30s they introduced the Glass-Steagall Act to avoid what happens with all this investor money and the investment banks getting under control. Basically, it said you cannot merge investment banks, regular commercial banks where we do business, and insurance companies. They have to be, their businesses have to remain separate. So in the late 90s, all the banksters and the insurance people and whatever, they said, oh please, now if we could do a lot better business, we could make the economy grow if we would just do away with the Glass-Steagall Act, because it's keeping us from doing, like some of our customers want us to offer insurance, and they want us to do this, and they want to invest, and they want a bank. And if we had just one company, it would just make it so much more efficient. And so Bill Clinton, Democrat, Alan Greenspan, Republican, Robert Rubin, Democrat, Treasury Secretary, and Gold